So leave it to me trying to make a legitimate video here, and we're barely into it, and I'm breaking out the spray paint.
From Mooresville, Indiana, he drives the Daystar Directional Drilling, Edco General Contractors, Collision Concepts, BooyahDarts.com 35. It's Zach Hampton.
All right, so we got Ollie checking things out here. Not letting me get too far. Not gonna let me leave him. Not bad. So next up, dash. This is one thing. It's new, so there'll be a little bit. One thing you can see the difference here. This tab we're gonna cut off. I kind of switched. It's not really the body style so much. As you can see, the hood goes inside the rails, but it's the same hood as I had, I would say most of last year, the year before, only it goes in the rails, which gives it a different dash. So the old dash, as you can see, you've got panels, everything hung up here. The old dash was flat, right? So it laid flat and then kind of the body wrapped around it, whereas this dash, is going to be the same as this one. The dash wraps around and then the body comes to it. So we're going to cut this off. Hopefully I can do it good enough that I don't have to touch up spray paint or too much. I can kind of whatever. But as you can see, this car had been fixed. You can barely see if the lighting's right. You can see where it's different. And I didn't want to spend the money to sandblast and powder coat, so I gave it the old rattle can powder coat. But yeah, we got to cut this tab off so that the dash will fit. And then the only thing that has been done on the dash, it don't quite come this big, but that's going to be for this. And that's already been, cut out. So we'll have to do some measuring a little bit off of this dash here because that's going to be the easiest way. But we'll cut this tab off. We'll get the dash on, Zeused in place, and then I'll kind of walk you guys through the gauges, where the lines come through, the box, all of that. Gonna get some hate for this, but I'm definitely a DeWalt guy. I'm not getting on the Milwaukee bandwagon. Now we've got us a sanding disc. Try to clean that up. Make sure there's no jagged edges that Ollie could get caught on. Hate doing that on a clean car, but it is what it is. I didn't realize that was still on there. So this is the closest gray I've been able to find. The gray on my frames is kind of a specific powder coat color that comes from, I don't know. I think my powder coat guy said it comes from California or somewhere, and they don't make a spray paint color of it. So we're gonna go with this. And we're just gonna kind of overlay a couple of paper towels here. Oh no. Okay, we've lost our cap. Get that back on there without spraying it everywhere. Now this does get covered up by the dash, so not super important that I do this, but I don't want it to start surface rusting. So we'll just patch her up. This thing is definitely, this can's not quite okay. Coming out a little thick. All right. That's just gonna have to do. Leave it to me trying to make a legitimate video here, and we're barely into it, and I'm breaking out the spray paint. So unfortunately, that little thing not worth $500 to take this thing to sandblaster and powder coater, for me at least. All right, so now we can put the dash on. I'm going to try to get you guys kind of to the front here so you can see a little bit. It's probably easier to put this on. Shoot. I lied. We're not ready. I should have checked. Well, I thought I'd looked. As you can see, we've got one on this side as well that doesn't appear that it's supposed to be there, as that frame's already had this dash put on it. So we're going to backtrack and redo all that again now that I put everything up. Hopefully this one goes quicker. Good as new. Flea, Rizik, if you're watching this, you didn't see that. He's my Flea. If you don't know who that is, incredibly talented welder, fabricator, etc. out of Illinois. Pretty big time motorsports guy. He does, I would say, 80 or 90% of my chassis repair stuff. I don't think that was worth driving to Illinois for, so hopefully he'll forgive me. Flea's the one who fixed this frame. Originally, this was the frame from, if anyone was watching, the Eldora Million. We got kind of ran over the left side, and the down tube kind of got bent in, and then they wouldn't let us. They let us run the heat, but we weren't allowed to go back out for the B. So that is this frame, and Flea fixed it. So it's probably better than it was to begin with. Hopefully more people can kind of relate to this this shit show here of some little stuff like that. You know, if you can afford to buy all brand new stuff and all that every year, you know, like you usually don't have to do stuff like that. But if you're like me and you can't, then sometimes you just got to figure it out. So as you can see, that's going to fit over. Your dash goes behind the motor plate there. And then, yep, we're lined up there and there. Yep. Let me just grab some Zeus buttons. So I'm not hurting for weight. On all my fiberglass stuff, I run the big head steel. They don't have to be steel, but I definitely suggest, whether this is carbon or fiberglass, I would run a big-headed Zeus here. It's just a lot better, like with it not being metal, obviously. You run the risk of it getting ripped, even just under the pressure while driving. There's so much air flowing everywhere. You'll see some hoods like blow up like bubbles, and you know, usually that's poor design, or they don't have holes cut where they need to. But as you can see, we've got two Zeus buttons here for this side, and we've got the 2 in over here. So that's going to hold it in place nice. Big thing you want to make sure of, you know, I cut this out on a different car, but as you can see that gap there, right? Like this is going to come in and out. Really, it doesn't come in much, but it can. So you want to make sure that that bolt, under no whatever tension, any direction, can it get caught on that fiberglass, because that can make your throttle stick or keep you from getting wide open. So you don't need a huge gap. I've got enough there. You know, unless this bolt comes loose, I'm never going to hit. So I'm happy with it. You can see my Sharpie marks, but that's okay. We'll brake clean those off before we're done. We're going to have more Sharpie marks here in a minute. So we're going to have gauges that'll cut in here. And then we'll have right here will be our 2 fuel lines, and then our box will go here. So there'll be a little cutout here, and then there'll be 2 Zeus buttons that come through here and here, and that's what holds your ignition box on. So let's go ahead and start. Actually, I'll show you real quick. I lied, there's one more hole, your switch there, the mag. So that's where you'll be able to read your tack through, and then that's where your switch comes through. And you've got 2 Zeus buttons, and then fuel lines, which I do have quick disconnects on, and then your gauges. So we're going to take, right, I've got my gauges in here. These actually need replaced anyways. So I'll bring you over here. We'll take these off. Oh, that sucks. I still got the Zeus tabs in there. I'm going to look. So we're going to get us a 1/4 inch wrench. Always put your nuts back on whatever they came off. Really, I'm going to put my little backers on there too. Nuts on. And I'll probably take those backers and nuts off because, like I said, these gauges weren't any good. They were over in the pile to get changed, but for the time being, they stay together. And then the other thing we're going to do here, we're going to go over to the drill press. We're just going to go ahead and drill these out. I can put new ones on after. I want to have a nice clean template, make sure that my Sharpie marks are perfect. The dash isn't something that you want to have to do twice. So we're going to throw this in. Oh. Missing 1/2 because I got to get super glue. There's that. Grab our drill, 1/8 inch drill bit. And then I'll move you guys here. So I'm going to kind of hold the back of this. This is pretty thin aluminum. I don't want to bend it. I do not have my finger behind that. This has still got the little, there's that. And just because I'm right-handed, flip this over. Get our little whatever's off. Find where both of those went to. If anyone's wondering, this little snow fence is in the summer. It can stick to the other side over there. And Ollie can't get out because he likes to go to the neighbors and bug them. So it allows him to kind of see outside and us have the shop door open. It's just retractable, but it's old, so the retractable doesn't work completely. We'll put our drill and drill bit up, nice and clean. Now we can get perfect marks. So what I'm going to actually do here is I'm going to kind of line this up, try to get you where my arms aren't completely blocking you. So I'm just going to stick this on there, as that's how it would be. And then we're just going to kind of measure from the edge, and we're about 1.5 inches. And then we're, I would say, I don't know, 1 1/8 inches, maybe 1/4. I'm definitely not going to go splitting those hairs. And we're going to do the Zeus holes first. So drill, 1/8 inch bit, and then nice unit bit, which will allow me with fiberglass, I can kind of move up, down, side to side if I need to. If I'm a tick off, I can get it to where I want it to be. And then I'm actually, with it being fiberglass, put that in my pocket. I'm going to go through from the other side. I know you can do tape, whatever, this, that. There's 1,000 ways to make this nicer or whatever. This is how I'm going to do it. I'm going to go ahead and grab these Zeus buttons, and make sure that I don't go too big. Because I want to say half. Nope. Glad I stopped there. So whatever on that unibit, I'm a little under half. Obviously, this has just a little bit of wiggle room, which I would say you kind of want. At least I kind of want. Gives me just a little bit of room. If it's just ever so slightly off. Even if these aren't off, every gauge panel I made myself. So there's a good chance that one of them is off just a bit. So sorry if I'm blocking anyone's view. And I know for a fact that needs to go up a little bit. So I'll start out here and kind of just push the drill up as I go. All right. And then to try and keep the fiberglass a little bit nicer on the inside, come through. Now these, you don't have to run these, but these kind of lock it in, and that way your Zeus is always there. You don't have to try and, like hold or get them started, whatever, right? Like you just can bring your panel up, and you can just hold your panel while you Zeus them in. So that part is really nice. So the next thing we're going to do, make sure that's still going. Yep. So I'm going to grab my, I don't even know what you call them, tachometers, whatever, right? And I'm going to make sure I get this measurement. And then that way we can do, we'll probably do a whole saw, like a size small or whatever. Maybe a size big if it's just a little bit big. And actually I have my digital ones in here. So I'm just going to use the tape measure. My digital ones batteries are dead, and they're not very nice. They're like Harbor Freight. So I don't trust this thing on any, because you just never know if it's been pulled. So I'm gonna put my 2 there, and I'll try to get this kind of in front of the camera. So I like that. So I'm gonna call that, I'm gonna want a 2 1/4 hole, right? Which is just a little bit bigger than the face there. And I can always Dremel it out a little bit bigger if I feel like I need to. So just the pilot deal without the drill bit, or without the hole saw part. And I really better make sure that if I'm centered, that just looks awfully close. We're going to check something on this other car. As you can see how close it is, right? Yep, that is indeed what we did. So it is really close, but that is okay, apparently. So now, this is all new to me, trying to do this on camera. So we've got that. And then get these holes lined up right there. All right, now we can lock that in. Bingo. So now, go ahead and pop this one out. Looks pretty good to me. Sorry, Oliver. Sorry, Bubba. Tripped over the dog. Should know better by now to not get in his way. Probably help if I turned the air compressor on. But there we go. I'm not going to get too carried away since we're not quite done yet. This part is definitely longer than anticipated. And now, really what's probably best to do next, which I need to take out of this old dash because I don't want to get the spare lines, is this piece, right? So let's get this out of here. Get you guys set up. Scoot that down. Give us a little bit of room. So I'm not sure what size these are. Yeah, I was gonna say I think they're bigger. They're kind of oddball sizes. I'm just gonna carry it with me, figure out what wrench we need. Definitely wouldn't have guessed those. So 13 16. So we're gonna take these off, and then I'm gonna show you guys kind of how these work, and we're gonna clean them up a bit because these clearly haven't been touched since they were on whatever car this was on. It would have been a little bit ago since it had this dash. I'll hang this back up real quick, and then I'll show you guys exactly what we're working with here. Righto. So I don't want these to get swapped. I can always look at the other car, but so as you can see on this side, you've got where it says pressure, return, and that's actually slotted so that you only have to tighten this nut, right? So these are your, some guys don't have a quick disconnect, but these are for your lines that have to go from the tail tank or the pump through the dash to the motor or the one coming back, right? So I run a quick disconnect, so all that's on here right now is a little cap to kind of keep that nice and clean in there, even though this wasn't. So we're still going to spray it out and clean these up. This opposite, right? So the reason we run a different one on each one is because there's going to be two lines on the motor, and if they were the same, then you got to look where the line goes to make sure it's in the right place. This way, only one of the lines can plug into that, and only one of the lines can plug into that, and they can't get switched. There's a back plate I made myself. I didn't come with it. But again, this is BMRS. That's where this came from. So I'm just going to remember fat side on pressure. I can always look at the other car if I have to. We'll start by grabbing, here it is. So these aren't going to be too dirty. I mean, they've always been kept clean. So just try to get the dirt and grime off. Really, this should have been cleaned already. Just I didn't even realize it was in that other dash until I went to go show you guys that other dash. So it happens. That's blown out. We can put that back on. We'll put our nut there to hold it, and I'll actually grab I'm going to grab 2 of them so that we have one for the other as well. Go ahead and put a cap on that while we wait. Now we can pull that off. I could grab the ones out of the trailer that I know are for sure 100% clean, but I don't really feel like robbing Peter to pay Paul right now, or however that saying goes. So Justin will either clip this or he'll just let you see it. I don't really care either way. This is not something that you want to put on dirty. This is the most important part of your car, or at least connected to it, right? Fuel and your motor, which are incredibly expensive. So you don't want to tear them up because you didn't clean your lines or your fittings or whatever. I don't care what they say. Lean's not that mean. So we'll look at this one over here actually. And we'll try to, I'm just going to get a ballpark. I know that I'm going to have to cut, as you can see where this is cut, and that's just because the box is too big. So we'll probably have to trim this one down as well. I could run it upside down and it really doesn't matter what these say, right? I could just Sharpie them in, whatever, but I just want the cards to match. So let's go ahead. Let's go over here to the bandsaw and we'll just cut these off real quick. I've been meaning to get a foot pedal for this. When I went to Harbor Freight to find one, I couldn't. So as you see, I have to plug it in, but they make a thing I can wire up a foot pedal. And this is actually one of the coolest things I ever bought because you don't have to buy a whole bandsaw. It's just like 2 little bolts that hold your bandsaw in. And instead of having like a handheld bandsaw, you have a bench press bandsaw. So there we go. Not super pretty, but what I have for that, I'm going to keep, well, I guess it doesn't matter how far I keep you guys because I'm using my AirPod. So I'll let you guys get in here. There we go. I'm not a machinist, but that'll work. I'm going to kind of measure, but I'm not going to go taking this stuff apart to get a good measurement. I think the biggest thing I need to do, let's just go center. We're about 5 3/8. And then I don't know if this is the best gauge, but I think the biggest thing is there's kind of a bend here. You guys probably can't see it, right? But the bottom is just above that. The other thing we could do, I think what we're going to do, yeah, we'll do it like this. Unfortunately, as you guys can see, we've got these tabs on here again. So like I said, we can always put those back on. We're going to grab our 1/8 inch bit and we will pick a lot of this up. I'll probably pick it up after we finish this part of the dash. I'll go to the next part of the video and I'll clean up a bit before we continue. This dash taking so long goes to show how much, like, if you're not doing a car that's already been built, just how much longer it takes to really do things right. Not that the way I'm doing it's the best way or the right or whatever, but it's certainly, I don't want to say better than most, but I know a lot of people who would not spend half this much time. They drill holes now and ask questions later. So, I don't have everything I need to do everything perfect, but I try to make it all look as nice as I can with what I've got at least. So, like I said, I'll clean up before the next part. But the important parts of this are going to be your hole here. Sorry, sometimes I'm like spaced over. That's because I can only see so much of my camera. So your hole here and here, this slot, and this hole. Those are the only ones on here that really matter for putting it into the dash here. So what we're going to do is we'll put this up like so. All right, so like that's how it's going to be. And then I'm going to kind of get a measurement, probably like ½ inch, and then we're like an inch. So that'll get us to where we're close enough that we won't be able to tell a difference. The wiring and such is going to have a little bit of slack. So if it's an eighth or whatever of an inch off here or there, we're never going to know. I'm going to do my best here. So all of these lines, like this is actually kind of at an angle. So I'm going to do my best off this over here. And this is definitely always, covered up unless the hood's off, which is not super often. There we go. There's our holes. Now, we'll set this down. I really need to make sure this thing's still recording. All right, so again, on these small holes, I definitely trust myself to eyeball. Grab our unibit. Get them started. This one I'm actually going to have to do all from out here. I'll be able to kind of cut, and then I'm going to use a Dremel to kind of shape that how I want. Boom. All right, so it looks like our little window there is going to be good. If it's a little bit big, that's probably better. You kind of have a weird angle from in the car. That's going to be good there. Really, that actually might get made a little bit bigger just because the switch is usually needs a little bit more room to kind of go through, and then it's kind of oversized, and there's a nut or whatever that's bigger. So that'll probably get made a little bit bigger, but let's do that real quick. I'm going to grab our Dremel. I've got our kit here. I'll grab the two that we're going to use. One of them's already on there. All right, so flat little disc, chop, chop, and then get this little guy. And that's how we're going to kind of make it look pretty, I guess would be the way to put it. There we go. I'm happy with that. Pop that on like that. And then we're able to find the best place for this without it, overlapping. So if I look at this other one, just real quick, basically my corner here was just in line with that, and I'm got a little bit of an angle. So I want to give myself just a touch of room. Probably going to want to be about a 45-ish. There's our holes. So one thing I need to check, our unibit is just the right size. So I'm gonna skip the 1/8 inch. Actually, let's go ahead and get this base plate out of the way for a second. All right, so those are drilled. One thing I'm gonna grab is I'm actually gonna grab a one size bigger unibit so that I can come through from the other side and kind of clean up the fiberglass a little bit where it is going to be kind of fraying. Well, maybe. I'm going to actually do it by hand. It's really tight back in here, so you can see just kind of trying to clean up the frayed fiberglass as much as I can. All right. Now let's grab one of these and let's see if I was right. I was wrong, so I'm glad I grabbed this other unibit. We got to go. It's okay to have a little bit of extra here. So I'm going to probably go 2 steps. I don't know, 1. This is a pretty aggressive bit. Let's go 1. And let's see how that works. Yep, 1 more. And I'm actually going to have to clean this one back off. That's definitely going to be good. So, take our unibit back off 1 more time. Just try to clean up from the inside. It's fiberglass, so I mean, at the end of the day, it's never going to get perfect. But we'll get it as good as we can. So I'm going to go ahead and spray this back off real quick. Just make sure there's no fiberglass inside of that. We don't want to plug our nozzles when we put a motor in this thing and fire off. So we've got our plate, our back plate. I'm going to go ahead and put these in my pocket for just a second. They'll go back on. And then we've got these 2. So we're going to take our nuts off here. Try to hold everything in my small hands. So, dropped 1 nut. All right, so like we said, pressure is on the top. So we're going to go ahead, stick that through, get our plate started on the back. And then we're not going to tighten this nut yet, but we're going to get it somewhat snug. All right, so now we can take our second one, get it lined up. Yep, it's through our plate on this side. Get these semi-snug here. Now I'm going to go ahead, put this back on so that I can move that with just a little bit of room I have. I can put that exactly where I want it. All right, so I'm thinking I like that. So it's going to be tough to see here because now we've got a lot going on here, right? But as you can see, the lines are back in here. So this is a 13/16. Because the top, that plate holds the front side, I only need one. You know, no matter how you do it, these are always going to end up like, they're just a pain in the butt. Or ass, I would say. I would definitely say ass. I just try to keep it somewhat PC, I guess. They're always going to be a pain to get to, no matter how you run your lines back here. I mean, you can run, you don't have to do quick disconnects, and you don't have to have like a bulkhead fitting like this. You know, some guys will put a rubber grommet. Where I drilled these holes, they'll put a rubber grommet, and then they just run their line all the way to the motor, which is perfectly fine. If you've only got one motor and you're never going to be changing one in a hurry, then, you know, I say do it. That's how my first cars were, you know, and it works just fine. It's not going to affect your fueling or anything like that. This is just going to allow you to change a motor way, way faster if you do have a spare. Let me put these caps back on before anything else. We'll be doing lines before too long, but there's anything line related, whether it's your fuel, power steering, or anything, should not sit open to where anything can get in there. So, sorry for blocking you there. As you can see our plate there. These are nice and tight. They're not going anywhere. Got caps on it for now. Here it is from the front side. You got your holes for your gauges there, and you've got your tack deal here. Obviously, it's a little bit off center. I could go back through and kind of clean that up, which I might later, but the tack thing is pretty small, and that's already a bigger hole than you really need. So yeah, so there's the dash. That's, you know, I would say the majority of your cockpit, other than we've got a fuel pump that'll go on. We've got some lines to do back to the fuel cell, a seat, you'll have a shifter cable here. But that's the majority of the dash, or at least what we can do right now. Well, I guess one other thing we should just go ahead and put on, since they're a little bit newer, I almost forgot about it. Fire bottle. I used Lifeline. That's what we went with. There's a lot of options. I don't have a single clue which is best, which is better, which you should get. That is not something I can tell you. I can tell you I've not had any troubles with this, and I like it. Probably as much as I can like any of them. It's just an extra step that you have to take. So I'm just going to get what we need to tighten this up. And they're really easy to put on. So make sure that's still going. Okay. All right. So I've still got all my stuff here hooked up. So we'll just unwind this cable here. And it's a little bit of a pain to kind of weave through at this point. But like I said, I kind of totally spaced it. So we're going to go ahead and get this on. This clamp that I've got is from King. I'm sure there's other people who make them. That's who makes this one. I think this is pretty much what most people have, is this style clamp. So yeah, let's slide that back. This is how I do it. I kind of put it on there loosely, and then I get my fire bottle up in there and kind of just hold it. And then I kind of just get it snug enough that it's not going to fall out, right? But I can still move it some if I need to. Probably just be a little bit snugger or freer, right? So snug that up nice and tight, right? So as you can see, this is where it's going to spray out if it does. So that's into the floorboard, and then my gauge is, straight up and down, so you can tell that that's there. My safety pin deal, which you don't have to have really, whatever, it came off. I'm sure everyone's has in X amount of races, right? So now let's work on running the line up to where I have the option to pull it. So these, when you first do them, they come where you can kind of, you can make it the length you need, and then you cut the cable like a certain way. Obviously, I can't show you that because my cable's already cut, but you cut it all along, and then you strip the black outer deal off, and then you stick it into the bottom. I would say whatever instructions come with the one you get are going to do a better job of explaining it than I could pretend to. So we're going to kind of just run this back, kind of goes in the corner here. This comes up. I couldn't remember what size that was. I was right the first time. And then, whoops, sorry, Oliver. I'm going to grab a wrench here. So you you have to take kind of your little pull deal off to get it out of the way so that you can get to this bolt deal. So you got to just hope it doesn't slide all the way down. But hopefully you guys can see this is kind of a clamp here, right? So let's back that off a bit. Twister on. Grab our Allen. I'm going to get it close, and then this will actually rotate. So right there. And this is definitely a driver preference thing, wherever they feel most comfortable. I've seen, some guys have it on the right. Some guys have their bottles on the right with their little, handle over here on the left. So definitely, having this somewhere as a driver preference, where are they most comfortable or feel like they can get to it the quickest. I don't want to make it sound like where's it most comfortable, like that's the first thought here, because it's not. Obviously, safety is. So wherever is the easiest to get to, but if there's a couple places and there's a spot where they feel it's more comfortable, then definitely, by all means, put it there. But there's not a right or wrong place, I don't think. So there she is, right? So my steering wheel's not on here, but that's going to be outside my steering wheel range. And then, you can see this line comes down and back, and then it's, just tucked along the edge, nice and neat. So, yeah, that we'll call it that the cockpit's done.